The night everything changed for Ethan Carter began like most of his nights, quiet, heavy with responsibility, and centered around one small heartbeat sleeping in the next room. Ethan was a single father at 34, a man who measured time not in promotions or paychecks but in lunchboxes packed, bedtime stories read twice because Noah liked the ending, and the soft rise and fall of his son's chest that reassured him the world was still holding together. His life had narrowed after his wife's death 3 years earlier, funneling all meaning into one purpose: protect Noah, provide for Noah, and never let chaos touch him again. That promise was why Ethan worked late nights at Hawthorne and Company, why he tolerated his boss's sharp tongue, her impossible deadlines, and her habit of blurring professional lines when alcohol entered the picture. Claire Hawthorne was brilliant, ruthless, and beautiful in a way that made rooms fall silent. She was also lonely, something Ethan noticed long before anyone else did, because loneliness leaves a familiar shadow. That night was the company's annual winter gala, a forced celebration Ethan tried to skip until Claire cornered him in her office with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "You owe me one appearance, Carter." 1. He agreed because single fathers learn to choose battles carefully, and this wasn't one worth fighting. He dropped Noah at his sister's place, kissed his son's forehead, and promised he'd be back before midnight. When Ethan arrived at the hotel ballroom, the air buzzed with music, laughter, and expensive perfume. He stayed near the edges, nursing a soda, watching Claire glide from group to group with a champagne flute that never seemed empty. He saw it in the way her laughter grew louder, the way her touch lingered too long on shoulders, the way her eyes searched the room and always, eventually, found him. By 10, she was drunk, not sloppy, but loose enough that her armor cracked. When the crowd thinned, Claire approached Ethan, her heels unsteady, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. She thanked him for staying late all year, for saving projects, for being reliable in a world that disappointed her constantly. Ethan listened, uncomfortable but kind, because kindness costs nothing and sometimes saves everything. Then she leaned closer, her breath warm, her perfume sharp, and whispered that she was tired of being alone. Before he could respond, her hand slid to his chest, and she tilted her face up, lips brushing his cheek, searching. Time slowed. Ethan's mind flashed with Noah's face, with the fragile stability he'd built, with the power imbalance standing between them. He gently but firmly took her wrist and stepped back. His voice was calm, steady, almost sad when he said, "If you were sober, I'd make the first move." The words weren't flirtation, they were a boundary wrapped in honesty. Claire froze, humiliation and something like relief washing over her face. She laughed it off, mumbling something about too much champagne, and stumbled toward the bar. Ethan left minutes later, heart pounding, wondering if he'd just destroyed his career or saved both of them from a mistake neither could undo. He drove home through empty streets, replaying the moment again and again, questioning whether he should have said less, or more, or nothing at all. When he picked Noah up and tucked him into bed, the world steadied again, but sleep didn't come easily. The next morning at work, the office buzzed with gossip he pretended not to hear. Claire didn't come in until noon. When she did, she was sober, composed, and distant. She called Ethan into her office. The door closed. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Claire apologized, not as a boss covering liability, but as a woman owning a mistake. She thanked him for stopping her, for respecting her enough to wait for a version of her that could choose clearly. She said she wouldn't hold it against him if he wanted a transfer or a recommendation elsewhere. Ethan shook his head. He needed the job. He needed the stability. He also needed respect, and for the first time, he felt it was mutual. They agreed to keep things professional. Or so Ethan thought. Over the following weeks, something shifted. Claire watched him differently, not with hunger, but with curiosity. She noticed how he left early for school events, how he declined drinks after work, how he spoke about Noah with a quiet pride that never begged for sympathy. Late one evening, as snow fell outside the office windows, Claire asked him why he never dated. Ethan answered honestly, because love once lost leaves a scar you don't rush to reopen, especially when a child depends on you staying whole. Claire listened, really listened, and for the first time since Ethan had known her, she looked vulnerable without alcohol to blame. The tension between them grew, unspoken but alive, balanced on the thin line Ethan refused to cross. He didn't know then that the hardest test wasn't the kiss he stopped, but the choice coming next, between safety and risk, between protecting his past and allowing a future he never planned for. If this story is already pulling you in, if you believe powerful moments are born from restraint, respect, and second chances, make sure you subscribe to the channel now, because this is only the beginning, and what happens next will change everything. Claire Hawthorne did not drink again after that night, not at work events, not at client dinners, not even when the pressure of a collapsing deal threatened to crack her composure. Ethan noticed the change immediately. He noticed everything now, the way she arrived earlier than anyone else, the way her voice stayed even when executives pushed back, the way she never stood too close to him anymore, as if honoring the invisible line he had drawn without ever naming it. And yet, that line didn't erase the gravity between them. If anything, it sharpened it. Their conversations became quieter, deeper, filled with pauses that said more than words ever could. Claire asked about Noah, at first cautiously, then with genuine interest. Ethan found himself sharing small stories, Noah's obsession with dinosaurs, the way he insisted on tying his shoes himself even when it took 10 minutes, the night terrors that still woke him crying for a mother he barely remembered. Claire listened like those details mattered, because to her, they did. One evening, a snowstorm trapped half the staff in the office. Claire offered rides home, and when Ethan hesitated, she surprised him by saying softly,